Good morning everybody and welcome. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar session on our new AutoDesign tool. Running us through the webinar today you have myself, Drew Johnston, Connections Input Services Operations Manager, Claire Roberts and Chris Artist, Design Engineers, and Derek Fairburn, Design Team Manager, who is also going to take this opportunity to engage with you all on our ED2 plans. The session is planned to last around about an hour, and you are free to ask any questions as we move throughout the presentation, and we have a dedicated session at the end of the session to hopefully answer all the questions that you have posed. As we move through the webinar, there are a couple of polls which we would appreciate you to complete. We will of course prompt you to complete these at the appropriate time. So, without further ado, I will now hand you over to Derek so we can make a start.
Yeah, good morning all, and thanks very much, Drew. As Drew's alluded to, the idea of today's session is to hopefully get the guys and girls on the team who've developed this, what we hope is a new and exciting tool launched. I will let them take all of the glory, but I'd like to introduce a couple of areas where we as a business would like to seek to engage with you moving forward over the following months. As Drew's mentioned, just to put faces to names from our perspective, there's myself, Drew, Claire and Chris that are going to present through today. And moving on from the presentation skills, we'll hopefully take around about, if it runs to about 25-30 minutes, then we'll leave about half an hour for the Q&A session. Please do put questions in so that we can field through them at the end of the sessions when we go through the tool. Fundamentally, any of the questions that we don't get time to answer today, we'll pick those up and we'll respond back to those on a bespoke basis. But it's certainly meant to be as interactive as possible, and hopefully we will get through with a more educated group of audience attendees today. As the bottom bullet indicates there, please do send feedback to today's session through to that so that we can pick it up and as I say have some further discussions with you if required. Just moving on to the first poll that Drew mentioned, it's important that we obviously do deliver the right content. So we're going to give you about 15-20 seconds just to give us an indication if you've got any experience or no experience of using AutoDesign, if you've registered with it but you've got limited experience, or if you're already using it to generate the free of charge budget estimate. So I'll give you 15 or 20 seconds to click on that, please. Appreciate that. Now, as Drew indicated, part and parcel of what my role on today's call is not just to support the team that have been leading and developing the AutoDesign tool and working closely with Drew to make sure that we get this presented out to yourselves, is to set some of the future business plans and priorities that we have. And what we are seeking to try and do is make sure that we proactively engage with a broad range of our stakeholders. Our ICP IDNO community are a very important group to ourselves. We feel we've built a lot of strong relationships up over the last few years with yourselves. It's been excellent to see under Drew's stewardship how we've had, I think, a very open and professional engagement and dialogue, and certainly my team are key supporters in all of the technical aspects associated with the inquiries that come through Drew's team. It's key to us in terms of our ED2 business plan to, as I say, bring yourselves on board, and part and parcel of what our plan looks to do is ensure the key areas and key propositions that we have to achieve are about customer propositions and building a plan which meets the needs of our consumers and network users, and certainly within the area of operations that people on this call are involved with in this webinar event, and make it easier to get them informed and get connected onto our network and use our network. But we also have to be, I say, very clear and transparent about how we are engaged in things. And our business periods last over 5 years, with the current one due to end in March 2023, the new one starting off in April 2023. So it's a long road for ourselves, but obviously it's important that we engage at a very early stage with our key stakeholders. And just to give that high-level positioning about where we are on the roadmap, we obviously have to build the framework, the methodology. We come forward with some what they call emergent thinking, and this is where I say those party to today's webinar we would seek to further engage with moving forward if you so wish to have input. And I say build up a stakeholder-driven plan for our next price control review period, which ultimately, as I say, ends up being submitted through to our regulator, and appropriate regulatory outcome comes obviously in 2022. So it's, as I say, a couple of year road, but obviously the earlier we engage, the more we can obviously take views on board and look to where appropriate build those ideas and suggestions into our business plan. Three of the key areas that we are looking to hone in on, but again, this is just our emergent thinking, and certainly moving forward, detailed engagement with yourselves will allow us to build out on these things, as providing a great connection service. See, we think about upfront technical support. It is critical in your world that obviously you sometimes have your own technical specialists, but again, bouncing obviously some of the schemes and getting that upfront advice from ourselves is important in terms of your framework for how you do business out in the wider world. We offer that in that area. Guidance to customers, again, some customers come to us direct, some customers come via yourselves, but ensuring that we offer that overarching excellent customer service is an area that we are targeting, and certainly in the areas of capacity and network run arrangements, pre-making any applications, making that service available to a number of different parties is an area that we're going to look to continue to improve in. We also think that flexible connections are going to become more and more critical. There is certainly a lot of I think change in that area occurring. When we talk about flexible connections, it may just be something about the timeliness of it and the quickness of that connection service. When we talk about flexible connections, it may be that when we talk about constrained type arrangements, network flexibility, demand side response, aggregators. So it's starting to change the way that we deal and do business with customers looking to connect onto our network, to try and ensure that we continue to, I think, be as open and as we can with those customers making applications to understand what our network's running like. So flexibility is going to become more and more of I think, an area where we will look to I think, have further engagement either during or before those applications come in. And a key area for yourselves, we talk about data and how to enhance the services. We've, I think, moved on again quite significantly over the last 3 or 4 years about access to our data services, the provision of that data. I think as more data becomes available and as our systems, our IT systems, and as data starts to flow in, big data from obviously smart metering, then getting that data availability and certainly how you use that, even outside of any direct contact with ourselves, it will become even more important to understand, what type of portals we may want to build, and other accesses to that information. So the other 3 key areas that I thought I'd bring to attention today, and certainly as we go through it toward the end, we'll be looking to see if we can have further engagement with yourselves in those areas and any other areas that you think may be prevalent to yourselves as we start to build our ED2 business plan. So with that, I will not delay proceedings anymore. I'd like to get into the thick of what you're all joined on for today, and I'll hand over to Claire to talk through the AutoDesign tool, and then I will join you back in about 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Derek. Good morning, everybody. If I can just give you a little bit of background with regards to AutoDesign. It was a project that started probably back in 2018 as a network innovation allowance project, and we've been working in partnership with EA Technology to deliver a new online self-serve design tool for low voltage connections. I think it's important to say, why did we do this? And we did it because of the obviously uptake in electrical vehicles generally, and we was also looking to obviously get the estimated number of inquiries and applications we receive for the new EV charging infrastructure, because we believe that that will increase. And the introduction of A&D fees, also known as connection offer expense fees, and these were introduced to share our design costs more fairly, and as a consequence, most budget applications now have to be paid for. Also, it's an opportunity to deliver an industry-leading system. It would improve our customers' experience and the service that we offer. The challenges that we face: targets and new technologies, they're driving a significant increase in the number of applications we are receiving for low voltage connections. And the existing process when requesting a budget estimate can incur costs, that's the A&D fees that I mentioned, and it typically takes about 10 working days. Obviously, customers want to avoid the connection offer expense fees, particularly when making multiple inquiries. They want to get quicker answers and position equipment in the most optimal locations on the network, as well as being able to self-serve and have more control over the process. The opportunity: we have made technical advances in our electrical records and how they're being held and how they're being processed, and this makes new network data readily available. And this project allows you to undertake your own budget estimates for LV connections. And our customers using the tool will be provided with sufficient information to be able to understand the locality of existing assets and their available capacity before entering the formal connection quotation and request process. And the tool will also be used by Northern Power Grid staff. The benefits: it's effective, it's quicker, and it's free. It's effective because it guides users to the most viable and cost-effective solution using a simple traffic light system. It's quicker because it can provide the budget estimates in a matter of minutes as opposed to up to 10 working days, and it's free to use. Future developments: the product is currently in the minimum viable product stage, and it is very shortly moving into business as usual. So we are currently in the process of understanding, investigating, and then ultimately developing enhanced service offerings. So that's building on what AutoDesign can offer. And we will be asking our stakeholders for their thoughts and suggestions with regards to what it is you would like us to focus on, and all of which will be taken into account when we are in a position to move to the next stage. So please do use the email address at the bottom if you've got any thoughts or suggestions, and obviously we'll look at them individually and then we'll feed that back to yourselves. So with that, I will pass over to Chris Artist, who will show you how to use AutoDesign.
Thanks, Claire. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Artist. I believe some of you were present to a brief I gave in November to the ICP IDNOs seminar. At that, I talked about the initial stages of AutoDesign and outlined how the budget tool will be developed. We're now at a stage where the initial release went live in January this year. And today, all I'm going to do is go through how you access the tool and how you obtain a budget quotation. So a number of you will be familiar with our website. There are two ways you can get into AutoDesign at the moment. There is a link there which you can add to your favourites, direct link. We also have an icon in the Get Connected section of our website. So you can scroll down and you can click to find the icon, which I believe is shown on the page there. So we've got an AutoDesign icon. When you click on that, it brings up a bit of a brief about what AutoDesign is, what it can do, and just gives the customer some guidance. And then to the right-hand side, there is a link that says go to AutoDesign. What you can do, click on that, and it will take you into the system itself. So there's a number of parameters there which sets out what AutoDesign is capable of. So at the moment, it is up to 210 kVA LV. It's a budget tool. It's basic load at the moment, so there's a number of things that AutoDesign can't process at the minute. These such as motors, generations, anything to do with an existing connection. So if it's an increase in capacity or you want to put an EV charger on an existing connection, then that's not what it's aimed for. It's purely new connections at the moment. So there just gives you the terms and conditions, tells you what it will do, and there will be a link that knocks you through to, if you can't put yourselves through AutoDesign, there's a link to the more traditional method of applying for a budget quotation. So what you need to do, I'm sure a lot of you will have already done this, but everything is logged in our CRM, so our Customer Relationship Manager. In there are copies of the quotation, so anything you do with AutoDesign. It also allows us to track what's happening. So you only have to do this once, so you're either registering or you're logging into the system. So once you've done all that, you're through to the interview stage of the system. So we've kept this as simple as possible. So it's very much like a traditional application. The first thing you've got to do is enter the postcode. So this is the postcode of the site or any site near to where you're looking to for the installation. So once you put that in our system, you can click the check postcode. The system checks the postcode and just makes sure that it's valid. That's mainly just to check that it's in our license area. But once you've done that, it should OK, and it's a case of putting in the address for the site. This is purely to populate the letter at the end of the process. Address, line 1 and the city are both mandatory, so you've got to fill those in. Once you've done those, underneath there's a question that fills out very similar to the disclaimer at the start. If there are any motors, any welders, any generation, then again you click yes. You get a pop-up box, and that will again drive you through to the connections part of the business to apply for the quotation through the traditional methods. If you click no, the screen will roll down and you'll be able to apply through AutoDesign. So below that, what we've done, AutoDesign is split into 4 sections. So it's housing, flats, apartments, commercial premises or EV chargers. Each of these are slightly different. When you click on the button, you'll get a number of options underneath. So if you clicked on residential, the house bungalow there, you can select the type of heating and put in the number of properties, and that will, a calculation is then done automatically based on our ADNOs and our LV policy. With flats, apartments and commercial, you can put in the demand that you're looking for, and you can also split it by units. What is set up here is EV chargers. So there's just 2 options for EV chargers. It's a standard 32 amp, so you can put in the number. So if you put in 4, for instance, it'll do a calculation based on 4 32 amp chargers and just give you a single point. Or if you know the demand of the installation, you can click the button and it'll take you straight through, and it'll that will be the information that's passed through to AutoDesign. So this part of the application is all done in the Northern Power Grid CRM system. When you click the button, what you do, you get a summary, so you can check. So for instance here, we've got an EV charger. We've selected 10 chargers at 7 kVA. It's totaled it up. If you need to change anything, you can click the button and go back into the form at the start. If you're happy, you click the button, and what the system does, it takes that information and it passes it through to the AutoDesign, which is based in the cloud. So it's away from our systems. The next slide. Go forward. We've just, because these are guaranteed standards, we've got a 10-day standard to them, even though they've been done through the budget tool. It's as though you've applied to us as you would normally. So there is a survey brief there. So that'll come up every time. You can click the button to dismiss that if you don't want to be contacted. If you're happy, you can click the button, and in the bottom right there, there's a next, which takes you through, takes all the information you've done previously from the application and puts you into AutoDesign. Now, as Claire mentioned, this is a traffic light system. So what this has done, we've run voltage studies on our network based on, we know the cables size, we know the customer's connected, so we can estimate what's on there. So the whole thing is run through a voltage study, and when you get straight into AutoDesign, green will say, yes, you can connect to this cable. Red is, don't connect, you can't connect, or we don't think you can connect at this minute in time. And amber is one of those where there may be data issues, so we're not sure, but you will be able to get a quotation from it. What you can do, you can see in the center of the screen, there is a point. You can place the point where you want your final connection, run a cable. Then you can see we've run a cable here in blue to a green cable, click the button, and that is the design done. Point load will always bring up a point such as that. What you can also do, it can calculate multiples. So if you've got a housing development and you want a budget cost for the full development, you can draw a polygon. The slight difference is you will click on the edge of the polygon, draw the cable from that edge to the green cable, and you can get a cost for the whole installation. That's based on many hundreds of jobs we've done in the past, so it's quite accurate. The next slide there is just, again, we've gone, the cable local to the point is red, so what we've done, we've drawn up and gone to the green cable. So once you're happy with that, once everything's decided upon, a box will come up saying, are you okay to proceed? If you are, if you click OK, that's it. That is your design done. AutoDesign now takes that information, passes it back to the CRM system, back with Northern Power Grid, and we can build a quotation with that. So that is it. That's the design done. You can see there's a few more caveats there. You'll get a customer reference number, and you will get a cost for that's been built up for that scheme. You can either download the quote at this point, but at the same time as once you've gone through to this screen, a copy of the quotation has been emailed to you, and we will also be a copy of that will sit in your CRM account, so you can access that at any time. If we go through to the last slide, this is just a guide. So that is an example of the email you would get through with the reference number and the cost, the quotation attached. And on the right is the budget estimate, which is very similar in format to the budget letter that we use, which a number of you may be familiar with. At the end of that, there is also a PDF, so you can see exactly what you've quoted, which and then that will be saved. So that is AutoDesign in a nutshell, giving access to our network and our LV records. I will pass over now to the Q&A session.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yep, I really appreciate that, Chris. It certainly, as I say, I think for what it does, and hopefully the speed at which you've explained it in real time, 15 minutes from getting into your CRM account, putting in some details, then drawing your polygon or putting in your single point, clicking onto the suitable mains cable, and then bang, it's done. I certainly think that it is quicker than the time it took you to go through that, Chris.
Yeah.
And therefore it's a really, I think, good tool for an awful lot of optioneering ideas about the loads that we've built the tool to be able to cater for. So just as a reminder about asking questions, hopefully as we've went through this, there are a few questions starting to come in. I'll start to pass those out in a moment. We'll just make sure that we do address as many as we can. I say I'll be fielding them out, either pick them up myself, but hopefully I'll field them out to Claire and Drew and Chris. And but again, if there's something that you think of after the webinar, then please do send it in to us so that we can pick it up. And again, a reminder on the feedback itself, it is important that we get feedback about how we delivered today's webinar, the speed at which we went through, the clarity of the information and the presentations that we've given you. So please do be constructive in your feedback so that we can learn and hopefully continue to deliver successful webinars. Jumping into the questions side of things, we do have a number of questions that have landed through. I'll just, as I say, I'll read out where the question has come in from, and then who I'm going to pass it on to. So I'll act as effectively MC for this session here. So, Drew, I'll kick off by passing the first one across to yourself. It's come in from Simon Dawson, and can we utilise this to kick off the self-determination of points of connection?
At the moment, the answer to that is no. The scope of the system is exactly as Chris and Claire have gone through with you this morning. But as Claire pointed out as she moved through her presentation, the scope of this is no doubt going to extend, and I have already, following our, well, actually before the event in November we had with ICPs and IDNOs, I was asking Claire, Derek and others questions about this. Looks a fantastic tool which has many capabilities. And the first of which will be self-determination of POC for small works by ICPs. So we all recognise within the business that there is potential scope for this to be expanded, and that will be obviously as we move through how this is working, strength test this. We will then move on to look to develop what the tool can be used for. So I think to answer your question, Simon, is at the moment no, but it's certainly our aim to be able to move there in the future.
Yeah. Got it. Fully agree, Drew. And I think, as you say, given the fact that it's built on obviously the overhaul of all of our record system, then as I say, it is certainly a tool that will continue to be developed in a number of areas over the number of years. So it's something that we are really excited about. I'll drop a question to Claire. That's coming from David McKenzie at Energetics. When specifying new loads, do new build houses with EV car charging points have to be entered as two separate items?
Okay. Hello, David. The answer to that is no. So if you are on AutoDesign and you click House, it will come up with a couple of options asking you for your heating type. So you'll have domestic, you'll have electric, non-electric, and then heat pumps. You have to bear with me because I'm talking from the top of my head. So if you click non-electric, it will then come up with EV yes or no. So it just sort of goes through a series of questions that it asks you for you to then click either yes or no, but you don't have to put it in twice. At the moment, we do not give you an option. If you click electric heating, we don't give you an option to click EV chargers because we're in line with our policy. However, I'm going to go to Chris in a minute just to make sure that what I'm saying is correct, but we are looking at developing that because we do understand that there are going to be electric heated properties that will want EV chargers. So that is something that we have in hand at the moment. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, that's right. As policy develops, we'll change that. I mean, as an IDNO, David, you could, if you were just looking at capacity on the system, you could put if you knew the demand for your development, you could put it in as a commercial load. And that would give you the point as well and give you the traffic light system, just tell you whether it would be green or red on the network local to the development.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good alternative as well. Yeah, thank you, Chris. So I hope that's answered your question.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Chris. I'll pick up a question. I might as well join in with the fun on this, and it's coming from David McInalarin at Energetics, sorry. Hopefully I pronounced your surname correctly. And how is interactivity managed? Well, again, at the moment, the tool is for budget estimates, so there isn't any interactivity associated with that. In other words, it is not a connection offer that you can accept. However, we are obviously looking at, as Drew mentioned, when we build this thing out about point of connection, self-determined point of connection, and when we are allowing firm, i.e. acceptable connection offers to be made from the system, then we will have to build the algorithms and certainly increase the amount of I think, dots that we put on our network to pick up interactivity. We know that the assets, we've got data upon when the assets were installed, so there will be some element where the system can possibly pick up interactivity issues, and again, further enhancements of it will allow us to do that. So at the present time, because budget estimates, there is no interactivity, but as we build the system out, we will seek to see where practicable, we will get the system to manage to indicate yes by selecting this point. Obviously, and if you are self-serving, to be able to accept that connection offer or commit to a point self-determined POC, then we would look to see if we can actually build that interactivity messaging back into the system. So I'll probably drop back into Drew's world again. A question from Gavin at Fergus Johnson. Pleased to see you on the line, Gavin. Could you confirm when full digital records will be available to ICP customers? We currently have access to all other DNOs other than NPG.
Thanks, Derek, and thanks for the question, Gavin. I'll answer the question in two parts, because you have mentioned full digital records, so I'll try and break the question down. So in terms of how and when have ICPs or ICP customers been able to access our records, then they've been able to do so since October 2015, where we've given full equivalent access via different options to our mains records, with obviously a number of ICPs accessing them since that time. The full digital records, and I might look at Derek on this one, but obviously when we converted to our new spatial systems, the old North East records weren't digital, where the Yorkshire ones were. So I'll look at Derek in terms of what that date was. So we offered when we converted over.
The conversion occurred, I think, on the 3rd of April last year was when we've done that.
The exact date of that. So you can see there then, so to answer your question, Gavin, we've always provided a copy of our records since October 2015, but on April the 3rd, access to our new system, which was fully digitised, was provided to ICPs. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yep, thank you. I'll just drop over into a question that's coming from Energy Assets. Again, apologies if my pronunciation doesn't get this name right. I think it may well be a person called Narenderiati. Hopefully that's pronounced right. And the question is, I assume the resilience of the system has been break tested. Can we have many people trying this out for training purposes? So I'll get Claire to answer that one.
Okay, I think it's Narinder, but I'm going to go with Narinder. So yes, we have tested the system, the resilience of it, with the resource that we've had. However, if you are offering to help us out with further testing and training, and obviously, you know, any other support that you can give us, we'd be happy to have you on board. So please make that known to us at the AutoDesign support email address. But yes, we have. So in answer to your question, yes, we have.
Great. Thank you, Claire. We'll just try and go through these questions. I'll pick another question up that's come in from David at Energetics about mentioned one proposal, the option to pay a premium for faster service. Are you able to give any more details on this? I will pick that up. That is, we kind of head into that area for ED2, but certainly there are a number of things that we do now associated with our larger customers that we wrap into the things like ICE plans. So faster services will fall across a number of different areas. As I say, we may well end up in having further discussions with the likes of yourself, say, well, what do you mean by that? Is it an out-of-hour service that you're seeking? Is it a calling off the services the day after it, as opposed to, say, a normal 10-day call-off and things like that? So I'll put that in the bracket of some further engagement with you, David, and we'll certainly pick up and run with that following on from today's webinar. I'll point the question through to Chris. Question in from Gary Barker at Energy Assets. Is login access per company, or can you have multiple logins for each company? So, Chris, do you want to pick that up, please?
Hi, Gary. Yeah, it could be anyone can set up an account. It's open to everyone, so you could have multiple accounts. It's up to you how you manage that then through your company. So we've seen there's at the moment there's multiple users from the same company on there. So yeah, it's completely up to yourselves.
Great. Thanks, Chris. We've got a question that's come in from Pat Coyle at Energetics. If there are existing assets within the polygon, can the AutoDesign tool cater for cost and diversions? Now, I'll probably let Claire come in and give a bit of an answer on that, and Chris, you might step in, I might step in on that, because I think we're trying to, I think, make sure that we've left enough hooks in the system as we've built out phase one to certainly start to look into these areas. So Claire, do you want to offer some more comments in that area?
Yes, I think it's quite prudent to say that the assets that you see on AutoDesign are just LV mains cables, so it does not include any other assets that we own. So there could be HV, EHV, auxiliaries, pilots, other cables that you will not see. So for the purpose of the budget estimate tool, which we're offering at the moment, it is just LV mains cables. So if there was just an LV cable running through that polygon and there was no other asset there, then the budget estimate at the moment does not cater for the diversion. However, I think it probably just gives you a point of note that there is a cable there, so you are aware of it up front, but the budget estimate cannot give you that information and say it would cost X amount to divert it. But like I say, please be clear that it is only LV cables that are on there, so we may have other assets that aren't shown.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Claire. So we've got a question that's come in from Erin Semple at Envivo. Will this reduce the time between getting a budget estimate and actually receiving the point of connection offer? So, well, I think we're trying to take this in small steps because, again, you know, on the basis that yes, we wanted to launch a tool where instead of waiting for up to 10 days, you can get a budget estimate within a matter of a few minutes, and then if you want to proceed from that budget estimate, we've obviously built on the form on the back, so that data is already there. I do think that the steps that our business are taking, and this does fall effectively between myself heading up the system design function and into Drew's world, is when we talk about the point of connection offer, if there is some way that we can amend our business processes to effectively pick up what's been previously offered through the system and doing those checks, and again, we are looking to develop this tool to effectively operate as an LV design tool for our business. So as we go through the reviews and iterations and further development of this, I would make a commitment that at some point there will be further improvements in those processes, and that could well be reductions in timescales to get the point of connection off out. It is all about ourselves getting satisfied that the system itself is robust. As I say, we break test this thing to make sure that we are happy, and certainly when we get into areas of where a point of connection is going to get issued, where we are making a commitment that our network can afford that point of connection, we do want to make sure that we've done the appropriate technical checks on that. So I do think it's an area that we will continue to look into as we develop the tool, and with a potential for making further reductions on the timescales as well. So it is an area that I can certainly commit to because they do fall under my shop. So we've got a number of other questions. I'm just trying to obviously have a look. There's a question from Energy Assets. Again, are we going to get the presentation slides from today's session? I think we can facilitate, you know, those slides. And again, we think that the tool is simple enough from our perspective to log in and play around with. But yes, we'll make the slides available from our perspective. Claire, do you want to pick up a question?
Yeah. We've got a question from Will, and it's put, is this primarily designed for metered connections? The answer is yes, but we are looking at other connections in the enhanced scenarios, and unmetered connections will also fall into that sort of agenda that we're looking forwards in the future.
Let's have a look, see what other questions we do have. So we've got a question from David at Energetics. How regular are your records updated? Chris, I can get you to pick that one up if you don't mind, please.
Hi, David. I believe that there's going to be a batch process, so that's originally we're looking at once a week. There'll be just to update the cables in the cloud. So as far as I'm aware, that is what will be happening. Hopefully AutoDesign will be as updated as we are as designers and our internal spatial system, so they should pretty much match. AutoDesign won't be far behind anyway.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, Chris, again, you may well ponder the question when you've got, 500 million different bits of assets, effectively creating the records that we now have digitalised. On an annual basis, we probably change 3 to 4% of our assets on an annual basis, and if you think about it, what we decided to do is by running this weekly batching process, it just does pick out where those individual assets have actually been changed on our network, and obviously bringing our systems fully into the 21st century allows, as I say, the type of batch running to occur overnight. So again, however many bits of new assets or altered assets have been recorded in our system, then just running that batch process overnight will facilitate, as I say, those records being as up to date as they possibly can be. There is another question coming from Kennedy at Energy Assets. Different IDNOs have varying policies regarding inclusion of EV loads as part of the ADMD for residential dwellings, with the latest being any charges up to 32 amp should not see an increase in ADMD normally applied, which in this case is 2 kVA. What is NPG's take on this?
Okay, I think I'll try and answer that one. I mean, at the moment, obviously, we are working to our LV policy, and we are saying that if anybody's connecting an EV charger, then there will be an additional load. Chris, can you help me out on this one as well?
Yeah, I mean, based on projects we've run, I think most DNOs are very similar. We've estimated at the moment there will be an impact on our network, and our LV policy reflects that. So I think in a lot of cases, certainly with 32 amp, it basically doubles the ADMD, depending on the curve. But they're in the back of our policy, and that's what AutoDesign is based upon. Like I said earlier, if an IDNO requires a different capacity, if you're applying, just put it through as a commercial load for AutoDesign.
I think I'll just build on that if I can as well, please, from something that I think it was only yesterday that I saw emerging from the G88 group, which obviously governs the interface between IDNOs and DNOs, and there is some potential, I think, in there to modify G88 to include a standardised approach to ADMD for this exact purpose. So that might be something that will hopefully answer your questions in future, Kennedy. And I think, Derek, as well, we have the same question from Sal. Energy Assets, so hopefully that answers both your questions.
Yep. I think we've managed to address most of the questions. Sorry, there's a further one come in from Simon at GTC with regards to access to our GIS system has now changed, whereby we need Pulse Secure, App Launcher, as well as access to mapping system. Is this with immediate effect? Are there any other options to revert back to the previous solutions? So again, I think it's in and around that space of access to our records. Now, I know that when we did change over that access, I think there was some further examination about that access, more surrounding security protocols. From a business perspective, you're aware that cyber security is increasingly more important. We obviously don't want to keep changing how customers access our systems, but what we will do is constantly review the security by which we do provide that access, and obviously all requests normally come in through Drew's team for obviously access into varying information sources. So I think there is something on the horizon in that space, which will potentially give some additional security to meet in with obviously the increased amount of cyber security that we have. It is highly likely that once we do that, that may well, I think, resolve some of the issues that have currently been noticed by some ICPs and IDNOs, as well as some other customers. But we are hoping that will sit in place for a minimum of a couple of years, possibly longer than that. So we are always trying to make sure that we are conscious about the disruption that changes to our system, and certainly access and the security protocols that we have to employ in our systems, and the impact it has on our customers. And there have certainly been some challenges around that, as I say, where we had to limit access to just the UK, Ireland or US sites, as in people with those trying to gain access from those countries. Any other countries, we effectively had to just put a block lockout of those. And again, we have to follow what advice is given for ourselves as an essential service and utility in and around that space. So it's something we can definitely pick up offline, Simon, if that is causing yourself some further issues, and have some additional dialogue if there is a problem with getting access. And
I'll just add to that, if I can, please, because I have been involved with obviously the varying models of access that we've had over the years to access to our records. So currently we are on what we would probably call a temporary solution, which is access to our records, which is what Simon's question is referring to, with a solution that's 90% there, an enduring solution to access our records. But again, as Simon's concerns around ICT security, we have the same security issue, so that's currently going through the testing phase at the moment. But what we will be doing is engaging, as we did with the last access, with ICPs and IDNOs directly for you to get involved and to test that access and to give us that feedback so we can shape that round. So we will be in touch with those of you who have volunteered to do so. And if there are anybody out there who would like to take part of it, then please email us at the normal address.
Yep. Great. Well, we really do appreciate there's a nice, good variety of questions that have come in to ourselves. It's pleasing that I think as a team we've managed to address all of the questions, but certainly if you think that we haven't provided sufficient clarity, then do follow up with ourselves, and we will obviously make sure that if there is anything that you think that we have missed off, then we can pick any further dialogue and communication up with you. Trying to bring things out to the close then. Again, you will see on the screen there is a couple of polls, so I will read through the first one, give you 15-20 seconds to answer it, please, and then we'll move on to the second poll, again 15-20 seconds. So we're just seeking to ensure, has today's webinar improved your understanding about how to use AutoDesign? So be a yes, a no, or a don't know, and with that I will give you 15-20 seconds. Thank you. And we will jump to the final poll of the day and the session. And certainly from a self-interest perspective on me leading our AD2 proposals for the connections part of our business plan, would you like to talk to us about those business plans moving forward? So a simple yes or no, if you wouldn't mind. 15 seconds, please. Thank you very much. And with that, I would just like to say it is very much appreciated that you've joined our webinar session today. My thanks go out to the team, Drew, Claire, Chris. It's certainly, and myself, it's, I think, probably given the current environment, where we are going to have to all do business, I think, moving forward. So please do feed back to us if you think there is an other alternative ways that you'd like to communicate with us. But with that, I will just close out by saying thank you, stay safe, and enjoy the remaining part of the day and the weekend. Thank you.